Some news stories. So this judge ruled against Trump on one of his wishes, and so the online community said she must have holy hellfire punish her, and someone bombed her house, severely injuring her husband and her son, I think, but she was out walking. And this, I think, explains a lot of why so many judges just rubber stamp anything Trump wants, like the Supreme Court judges. They are held in terror by the death threats. The same thing I've repeatedly been told the same thing is true of Republican senators and congressmen. They are afraid for the physical health of themselves and their family if they dare to oppose anything Trump wants. So he's basically a mob boss extorting the whole nation. And our whole nation seems to lack the moral courage to stand up to him. And, you know, the few Congress people that stood up to Trump in the last term were all pushed out of office. So the problem is his voters are all still with him, and because they consume nothing but propaganda on far-right sources, and they believe that all the legitimate news sources are in a conspiracy against them, they believe that he is sent by God to save them and he's on their side, although I think they're beginning to notice that the wars didn't end and the prices didn't go down after he promised that. And he's still claiming the prices are down, inflation is down, which is totally not true. And I think an increasing number of Republicans will even notice this. Even though they have a steady diet of propaganda, there's reality of their life that cannot be concealed. So we'll see what happens in 2016. Certainly Trump is preparing to send the military in to seize the voting machines, to stop the Democratic votes from counting, and we'll see how that goes. The CDC, as expected, has ruled that you can no longer get a COVID shot without talking to a doctor first. This is what's expected from RFK Jr. He did promise in his confirmation hearing exactly not to do this, just like all the Supreme Court justices promised not to overturn Roe versus Wade, and it's all a theatrical show. The senators pretend to believe that. Everyone knows they're lying. When they get in, they do the opposite, and there are no consequences. So, like I say, California and other blue states are just ignoring this to some extent. And like I say, a health plan like Kaiser is financially responsible to actually treat people if they get sick. So they have a financial incentive to disobey the government. But we'll see what happens, because people who got the shot and then got sick could try suing Kaiser and say, you violated the CDC instructions. We'll see what comes of all this. It is an unpleasant and difficult legal situation if the CDC gives false medical advice and then local authorities have good medical advice. We'll see what happens if it goes to court. We'll see if the truth actually matters in court, which will probably depend on who's putting pressure in what direction. There's a rating of democracies from 1 to 100, and we've fallen to 54, far below Canada and Mexico. And you know, we're very corrupt. We're not as corrupt as Russia or North Korea yet, but we're very much in that direction. And there comes a time when the truth doesn't matter. All that matters is what team you're on and who your friends are and whether they're important. So we're headed in that direction. So Deloitte, the Australian government paid hundreds of millions of dollars, $440,000, pardon me, to get a report checking their security compliance framework, and Deloitte generated it with AI, and it was full of lies and hallucination-filled stuff. And this is, like I say, I'm waiting for the bubble to crash. Everybody is firing their staff and replacing it with AI because middle managers don't know what's going on, and they imagine that a document that sort of looks kind of okay is good enough. But when you actually look at it, you'll find out that the AI is doing a terrible job, and so they're having to refund some of the money and such, and they're trying to pretend this is a small problem, and people in the Australian government are saying, no, this is a big problem. This means we can't trust anything you tell us, which I think is a far more accurate way to analyze the situation. If they're insane enough to hand over AI hallucinations and not even review them, then I would demand all your money back and not believe anything they say. Red Hat has been hacked. Red Hat makes the version of Linux that is used by many American businesses, and their consulting has been breached, and this puts high-profile enterprise customers at risk. And this group is extorting them. Red Hat is not paying the ransom, and so they're gradually dumping more and more information about the data they stole. So we'll see what harm that actually ends up doing Red Hat. It's not clear yet. San Francisco has a law that if the police purchase a surveillance system, they must inform people about it. And the police really don't like this. They say it's too much bother. They widely ignore it and are being sued many times for failure to do it. And there's a battle now over whether they can repeal this law. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, of course, thinks this is a good idea and supports it. The police, of course, want to end it, saying it's just a lot of bother. So we'll see what comes of it. So Trump wanted to send the National Guard into Chicago and Portland, and he got a legal judgment against him. The federal judge, one judge said blocked it. Now another judge declined to block it. But anyway, Trump now says he wants to declare martial law, your emergency powers, invoke the Insurrection Act, and send them in. This has been done before. The only difference is, in the past, there was an actual emergency. Now Trump thinks he can just declare emergency. He said Portland is burning to the ground, which it absolutely is not. He can just lie about an emergency that isn't there, like his war. He's starting a war with Venezuela. He's invading it with 10 military vessels and many troops, and he's killed 4 boats of random people without any attempt to find out who they are or see if they actually did anything wrong, which is a clear violation of international law and a war crime. And he's declared that we have a non-international conflict, so it's not exactly a war, and he's allowed to just declare it without going through Congress. So, we continue to sink into this totalitarian rule where Trump just does any damn thing he wants, and nobody can say anything about it, not the courts, not the Congress, not anybody, and we'll see what comes of all this. Ultimately, it's the voters that determine, and the people determine what they're going to put up with from Trump. And Trump continues to be very sick now. He only appears in public for like 2 days, and then he vanishes for 4 or 5 days, and his hand shows bruising every time. So he's getting some kind of serious medical treatment intravenously, and nobody will say what it is. And he increasingly in public, he just seems to be disoriented and talk in ways that make no sense at all. He doesn't seem to know what year it is or what the names of any of the countries are. He couldn't remember the name of his own book that he wrote. So I think he's really on the way out, and the other members of the administration are making it very clear that they're ready to take over. So realistically, he's not going to be able to stay in power much longer. His health is failing. This is very much like what happened in Russia. Every time at the end of a Russian dictator ruling, they would try to pretend he's okay when he's sick, and he would gradually vanish more and more from the public view until they finally have to admit that he's sick or dead. Just like this, they try to cover it up and pretend nothing's wrong when it's obvious something is wrong. All right. And for example, he just had an interview on CNN, and he didn't show up on CNN, and he didn't even call in. He would only text. And they said, "Why are you doing it this way?" and got no explanation. But that implies that either it's somebody else on his staff providing the answers, or he is so sick that he can't allow his voice or his appearance to appear on television to reveal how sick he is. So, all right. And so this is probably the most important one in many ways. The American economy, the aggregate numbers show that the economy is doing fine and the stock market is going up, but it's all an illusion. It's nothing but AI. AI is like half of the entire economy. In fact, everybody, and that affects only like the top 1% or less than 1% of people are invested in AI. They're making a lot of money, enough that the average moves, but everybody else is very poor. They've been laid off, they've lost their jobs, they can't afford their medical bills. The Republicans are trying to double their medical payments, and they're cutting all the government funding, all the aid that they were getting. And so the people are just in more and more misery, but it's concealed by the aggregate numbers that look good just because of AI, and the AI valuation is insane. It's already vastly overinflated, and this is just like happened in the Roaring '20s. Everybody invested on the stock market, and they borrowed money to invest more, and it went up and up, way beyond the actual value of the stocks. This is a bubble. Everybody buys it because it's going up, and it keeps going up because everybody buys it, and this goes on for a period of time until something breaks their confidence, and then everybody sells, and it all just collapses. So, yeah. Basic automation. Well, that's true. That's the other thing. I haven't heard that secretivo, but I'm not surprised. People, of course, try to claim everything as AI, even if it isn't. Anyway, so, like I say, AI is now the center of all economic activity in America, and this is very much like what happened in other bubbles, like the subprime mortgage crisis and the internet bubble. Everybody jumps in something just because it's fashionable until it's way above its actual valuation. And then it, of course, eventually crashes down, and everybody that thought they were rich discovers that they aren't rich. So Pete Hegseth, again, wants to have polygraph tests on people in the Pentagon to try to stop them from leaking. So this is typical for a weak leader. They worry all the time about betrayal from the inside and try to crush it by force. The kind of stuff you typically see in totalitarian dictatorships in places like this, where you have someone completely incompetent chosen because of his political connections put in charge over troops when he doesn't know anything about what he's doing. And he does not have the respect of his troops, which I must say is a very good thing. This is the thing that saved us in the past Trump administration when he tried to perform a coup to take over the government. He was so incompetent at a military action, he couldn't do it. He had a bunch of armed followers who could have invaded and started shooting people and taken over the government, but he was too incompetent to lead them. And again, it's happening. His connections with the military are too bad for him to perform a military coup. And that's his flaw. We're saved not so much by the strength of our defenders, but by the incompetence of our attackers. Anyway, all right, let me stop the